Her mate betrayed her, his rival saved her. The rival's claim. Chapter 1. Sonia smelled the lie before she heard it. It clung to the back hallway of the Moonquarry Lodge like cheap cologne, sour, slick, faintly metallic. Her wolf rose in her skin, hackles brushing bone. She'd grown up in these cedar walls, slept in these bunks as a pup, cut her palms on this stone hearth to swear she'd never betray the pack. Tonight, the hearth threw shadows across the dining room where alphas laughed too loud, where the fire ate secrets and grease. Kale was supposed to be hers. The bond mark on her wrist, jagged half-moon burned there at 19, had flared for him first, fast, bright, inevitable as a struck match. The pack had cheered. Fate had spoken. Sonia had believed. Then she pushed open the service door and saw him with Mara in the storeroom, the soft, wet gasp, the curve of Mara's back against burlap sacks, Kale's hands possessive and careless. For a heartbeat Sonia thought she was seeing a mistake in the light. Then Kale's head lifted, his pupils flashed gold. He didn't look guilty. He looked annoyed. "Sonia," he said, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand like the whole world was an inconvenience. "You're early." The word cracked something. Mara didn't flinch. "You can't expect an alpha to starve while you're off playing hunter," she purred, voice sticky. Sonia's wolf slammed claws against her ribs. "The bond mark on my wrist didn't mean wait your turn." Kale's jaw tightened. "Don't be naive. Bonds are tools. Alliances. You want safety? You want status? Accept what keeps the pack strong. What keeps you gratified," she said, and the calm in her voice scared her. "You marked me and then you chose to be faithless. That's not strength. It's rot." His smile showed teeth. "Careful, little moon." She turned before the rage made her do something she couldn't take back. The corridor bent toward the storm door. Rain slapped the gravel outside, the mountain carried the smell of pine and wet copper. Behind her, someone, Kale or Mara, laughed. It followed her into the weather like a curse. She didn't make it to the gate. Two shapes stepped out from the birches, blades catching lightning. Not Moonquarry, their scent was iron and ash. Rogues. Or worse, Briarborn, the rival pack with a taste for ugly work. "Pretty lamb," one crooned. "Alpha's toy all alone." Sonia dropped low before thought. The first knife kissed air where her throat had been, the second skittered off the doorframe as she kicked hard, felt cartilage give under her boot. Pain flared, someone's, maybe hers. She didn't shift. There wasn't room. She fought like she'd been taught, elbows and knees and the willingness to break fingers. One rogue howled, another slammed her shoulder into wood. Her wrist blazed, the bond mark burning like it wanted to be useful for once. The bigger wolf caught her by the hair and yanked. "Kale sends his regards," he hissed. The world went pinhole. A voice cut the rain. "Let her go." She'd heard it across border disputes and at winter moots, always from the opposite fire, deep, gravel-scraped, threaded with command. Bronx of Briarborn, the rival alpha's right hand. Rumor said he'd torn a bear in half once. Rumor said he'd never smiled. The knife at her throat paused. "This Moonquarry meets your problem now, Bronxy?" "Last chance," Bronx said. He came out of the rain like the mountain had grown legs, tall, broad, scar-ridging one cheek like a lightning strike. His eyes were wolf even in human skin, storm-dark, assessing, cold. He moved and the night moved with him. The rogue holding Sonia shifted, indecision slicking his grip. Bronx didn't repeat himself. He stepped in, caught a wrist, twisted. Bone snapped. The knife fell. Sonia used the freedom like oxygen, drove her head back into someone's nose, spun with the pain to rake a heel down a shin. Bronx was already on the second man, forearm under jaw, a bored efficiency to the choke that promised sleep or death depending on how polite the universe felt. Lightning lit the yard like a photograph. Bronx looked at her in that stark second, at the blood on her lip, the rain in her hair, the fire under her skin that wouldn't bend, and something in his face shifted. Not softness. Recognition, maybe. Or the brief, reluctant interest of a wolf who has found a fresh track. The rogues fled limping into the trees. Bronx didn't chase. His gaze stayed on Sonia as if she were the thing likely to kill him. "You're bleeding," he said. "So are you," she shot back, because old habits, enemy lines, rivalry, were easier to hold than whatever this was. He didn't bother to check. "You're Kale's." Her laugh was a glass shard. "Not tonight." Bronx's jaw worked, as if he'd bitten down on a thought and decided not to say it. "He set you up?" "He betrayed me," she said, and the truth tasted like rain on rust. Then his enemies came out of the trees. "Not his enemies," Bronx said, voice flat. "The ones he rents when he wants a mess he can deny." Sonia's stomach turned. She'd known, and also she hadn't. She gripped the doorframe because the lodge was suddenly far away and the mountain was tilting. "Why warn me? Why help me at all?" Bronx's eyes didn't leave her face. "Because I don't like men who break what they claim. Because this feud isn't worth the bodies it eats. Because," he glanced toward the trees, nostrils flaring. "They'll be back with more." "Then come inside," she said, before she could decide to be proud instead of alive. He shook his head once. "Moonquarry would shoot me before the rain dried. I'll draw them off. Take the south stair, wake whoever you trust." "Not him." He stepped back into the weather, rain slicking his hair to his skull, making the scar on his cheek a white river. "Bronx," she said, and he paused, as if surprised that his name coming from her mouth didn't sound like a curse. "Thank you," she said. He gave the slightest nod, a concession extracted from a stubborn god, then vanished into the trees like the night had opened to swallow him. Sonia braced her palms on the cold door, breaths coming ragged. The bond mark on her wrist still burned, but not for Kale. For the first time since it scarred her skin, the heat felt like it belonged to her alone. Inside, the pack's laughter rose and fell. Outside, the rain chewed the edges off the world. Between them, in the doorway, Sonia understood the shape of her new life, betrayed by the mate she'd been given, saved by the rival she'd been taught to hate, and balanced on the knife edge between war and whatever came next. She wiped her mouth, bared her teeth to the storm, and chose not to break. Chapter 2. By the time Sonia staggered back into the lodge, the storm had swallowed the night whole. Firelight and laughter spilled from the main hall, too bright, too warm. To step inside bleeding and breathless felt like stepping into a lie. The alphas were still at the long table, mugs of mead raised, Kale sitting at the head as if he hadn't just sold her spine to rogues. His hair was damp from sweat or sin, his smile came too quick when he saw her. "There you are," he said, voice threaded with false relief. "We were worried." Sonia's hands curled into fists. "Worried I'd walk in on you again?" The table went still. Kale's eyes flashed gold, a warning. "Careful, little moon. You've had a long night." "Not as long as yours will be," she snapped. Her wrist still burned with the bond, but she felt no tether to him now, only the ash of what he'd burned. Her father, Elder Garin, shifted in his chair. "Sonia, speak plain. What happened?" She told them. Not everything, Bronx's presence she kept sealed behind her teeth, but enough. The ambush at the gate. The rogues with Kale's stink woven through their threat. The bone snap she hadn't caused. Kale scoffed, performing outrage. "You think I'd hire carrion to harm my own mate? Rogues prowl these woods for coin. Anyone could have sent them." The elders murmured. Doubt clouded the air. Sonia's gaze held his, unflinching. "Anyone didn't say your name while pressing steel to my throat." A muscle in Kale's jaw twitched. Then he leaned back, lazy, smirking. "If you believe rogues, you're already lost." The room's silence was verdict and cage both. Sonia saw it then, the rot not just in Kale but in the circle that allowed him to smile through treachery. If she shouted louder, if she forced the truth into their ears, they'd call her hysterical. They'd call her bond-crazed. They'd call her anything but right. So she bowed her head, swallowed her rage, and let them think she was beaten. Later, when the hall emptied, Ellie, her cousin and closest confidant, slipped to her side. "You're trembling." "I'm thinking," Sonia said. "About Kale? About Bronx?" Ellie's eyes widened. "The rival wolf?" Sonia met her cousin's gaze. "The rival who saved me when my mate tried to break me. That Bronx." Across the ridge, Bronx limped into Briarborn Camp, rain-soaked and mud-smeared. His alpha barked questions, but Bronx only said, "Rogues in the woods." "Cleaned them up." Axon sneered, unsatisfied, but let it drop. Bronx washed the blood from his knuckles in the stream, watching crimson swirl away. He thought of Sonia standing in the storm, unbroken even with a knife at her throat. He thought of her voice when she'd said thank you, like no one else had ever meant it. The feud was older than either of them. The war would eat them both if it could. And yet, as the rain hissed on the pines, Bronx felt the shift inside him. He wasn't sure which battle he wanted to fight anymore. Chapter 3. The next night, Sonia couldn't stay caged inside the lodge. Kale's smug eyes followed her through the halls like a curse. Every elder's nod felt like dismissal. Even the fire seemed to mock her, crackling on wood that had never been tested by rain. She slipped out under cover of the storm. Not to run. To hunt. Her wolf ached to shift, but she kept her skin, moving fast and silent down the deer trail that threaded Moonquarry land into no man's territory. The rain made the earth slick, the air sharp with pine and wet stone. She'd replayed the ambush 100 times, every knife, every laugh, every crack of bone. And always, in the corner of her memory, the scarred face stepping out of the storm, Bronx. She found him where instinct said she would, in the border woods where the pines grew tallest, where the pack scents blurred into a restless mix. He was leaning against a tree as if he'd been waiting, arms crossed, eyes glinting even in the half-dark. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "You saved me," she shot back. "I save a lot of things. Wolves. Deer from snares. Doesn't mean I invite them back." Sonia stepped closer, ignoring the growl in his tone. "Why? Why step in at all? If rogues cut my throat, Briarborn gains. Moonquarry loses. Isn't that the story you're raised on?" Bronx's jaw tightened. The scar down his cheek caught the lightning and made him look carved from the storm itself. "Maybe I don't like stories where men get to own women and call it destiny. Maybe I don't like Kale stink enough to let him win." The anger in Sonia's chest flared, sharp as glass. "You know what he did?" Bronx's gaze locked on hers. "I can smell it. Betrayal stinks the same in every pack." The silence stretched, thick with rain and unspoken things. Sonia's heart pounded. This was madness, standing here with a rival, confessing what she hadn't dared tell her own blood. But for the first time since Kale's betrayal, she felt seen. "I can't go back to him," she whispered. "But if I walk away, the pack will brand me traitor. My bond mark ties me like a chain." Bronx unfolded his arms. He didn't step closer, but his presence filled the space between them. "Marks can be broken. Bonds too. But it costs." "What cost?" His voice was low, steady, almost a growl. "Everything." Her wolf shivered at the promise in it, not a threat, not exactly. A truth. For a heartbeat, the rain eased, and Sonia thought she saw something in his eyes that wasn't rival or rescuer, but something more dangerous, recognition. She didn't step closer. She didn't have to. The night had already pulled them into the same circle. Chapter 4. Kale's suspicion came faster than Sonia hoped. 3 days after the ambush, she returned from the ridge with pine needles tangled in her hair and mud streaking her boots. Kale was waiting near the lodge gate, arms folded, smile like a knife. "Late again," he drawled. "Hunting, or hiding?" Sonia forced her face blank. "Not that it's your concern, but I was tracking deer." Winter will be long. He stepped closer, voice dropping to a murmur only she could hear. Don't lie to me, little moon. I can smell it, the woods on your skin, the ash that doesn't belong to us. Who are you meeting out there? Her wolf snarled beneath her ribs, but she held the fury down. The only thing I meet is silence. Something you wouldn't recognize. His eyes narrowed, gold flickering in their depths. For a moment, she thought he'd grab her, press claws into her arm like he used to do when he wanted to remind her what alpha meant. Instead, he leaned in, whispered, "You're mine until I decide otherwise." And then he was gone, striding back toward the lodge with Mara trailing in his shadow. Sonia's pulse hammered. She wanted to scream, to tear the bond from her wrist with her teeth. Instead, she clenched her fists and walked toward the tree-line. If Kale wanted proof of her betrayal, he'd have to chase her into the dark. She didn't know Bronx was following until she felt him. Not heard, felt, like the mountain itself had shifted weight. You shouldn't let him corner you like that, he said, stepping from the shadows, scarred face hard with disapproval. Sonia whirled. You were watching me? Guarding, he corrected. He doesn't deserve the chance to draw blood from you. Anger flared, but it wasn't aimed at him. And what? You'll just stalk me through the woods, playing silent protector? That doesn't make us allies. Bronx's mouth twitched, something almost like humor ghosting across his face. No. But it keeps you alive long enough to decide what you are. The rain had stopped, leaving the night hushed and damp. Sonia crossed her arms, heart racing with the admission she hadn't voiced aloud. I don't know what I am without the bond. Without the pack. But I know what I'm not. I'm not Kale's. Bronx's eyes softened, though his body stayed carved in iron. Then you're stronger than you think. She hated how much the words mattered. Hated how the truth in them settled under her skin like warmth. For the first time, she didn't see him as a rival. She saw him as a wolf who had chosen, against instinct and blood feud, to stand between her and the knife. Why me? She whispered. His gaze held hers, dark and steady. Because you didn't break. And the strangest thing was, in his voice, it sounded less like pity and more like admiration. Chapter 5. Bronx didn't offer lessons outright. He simply started appearing when Sonia slipped into the woods at night. One evening he tossed her a knife still warm from his belt. The next, he corrected the way she braced her shoulders when she drew her bow. By the third night, she didn't ask why he kept coming back. She only asked what came next. You fight like someone who's never been allowed to fight for herself, he said as they circled in a clearing slick with wet leaves. Sonia's jaw tightened. Kale said a bonded mate didn't need to. Bronx's scar caught the moonlight as he stepped closer. Kale lied. Again. She struck fast, aiming low, but he caught her wrist with frustrating ease. Predictable, he muttered. I'm learning, she hissed, twisting free and slashing upward. The knife grazed his forearm, a shallow line, but it drew blood. Bronx looked down, then up at her, and for the first time, his mouth curved into something sharp and approving. Better. She felt it like a pulse under her skin, something more than pride, something dangerous. The part of her that still carried the bond mark burned in warning, but it wasn't for Kale. Not anymore. They trained until her arms ached and her lungs were raw. When she dropped to her knees, gasping, Bronx crouched beside her, close enough she could feel the heat rolling off him. You're not weak, Sonia, he said. You were caged. Her eyes burned, but not from exhaustion. And you're teaching me to break the bars. His hand hovered near hers, not quite touching. Break them. Burn them. Whatever it takes. For a moment, the air between them tightened like a bowstring. His gaze held hers, steady, storm dark, and she felt the weight of something that wanted to be more than rivalry, more than protection. Something she wasn't ready to name. She looked away first. If Kale sees these bruises, he'll know. Let him suspect, Bronx said. Fear is the only loyalty he understands. Back at the lodge, Kale did notice. He stopped her in the corridor, fingers grazing the bruise along her forearm. His smile was thin, cold. "Who's teaching you to fight, little moon?" Sonia yanked free. "Maybe I finally decided not to let you kill me." Kale's eyes narrowed, but before he could answer, Mara appeared at his side, draping herself across his arm. "Don't waste breath on her," she purred. Sonia turned away, hiding the fury that nearly split her skin. But beneath the anger was a spark she hadn't felt in weeks, defiance. The bond burned, yes, but now it was fighting against her, not for him. And she wasn't alone anymore. Chapter 6. Kale didn't confront her again right away. That wasn't his style. He liked games, like a wolf that wounded its prey first just to savor the chase. Sonia noticed it in small things. Patrol routes changed so she was paired with packmates who reported everything. Mara's smiles grew sharper, eyes tracking her every move, elders whispering when she entered the lodge. Kale was weaving a net. And she was the rabbit. Still, she went to the border clearing. She couldn't stop. Bronx was already there, arms folded, scar pale against his dark skin. "You're late," he said. "They're watching me," she admitted. His gaze sharpened. "Kale knows. He suspects." Sonia's throat was tight. "He's going to make me slip. He wants to catch me in the lie." Bronx stepped closer, his presence steadying her as much as it unsettled her. "Then don't give him the chance." She laughed bitterly. "And what am I doing here with you, if not handing him proof?" "Proof of what?" Bronx's voice dropped, low and steady. "That you want to live? That you're stronger than the leash he tied around your wrist?" Her hand brushed the mark without thinking. "You make it sound simple." "It is. The bond is only as strong as the lies you feed it." Before she could answer, the underbrush snapped. Wolves burst from the shadows, Moonquarry, not rogues. 3 of Kale's lieutenants, eyes gleaming with triumph. "There," one snarled. "The alpha was right, she's been sneaking to the border." Sonia's heart plummeted. Kale hadn't just suspected, he'd set a trap. And she'd walked right into it. The first wolf lunged, but Bronx was faster. He shifted mid-stride, his wolf form an enormous shadow of muscle and scars. His snarl rattled the trees as he slammed the attacker into the dirt. Sonia drew her knife, spinning to meet the second. She caught him across the jaw, but claws raked her shoulder, hot pain blooming. The third circled, teeth bared. "Kale will gut you for this, traitor." Bronx lunged, a storm of fur and fury. The lieutenant yelped as Bronx pinned him, jaws at his throat. The clearing reeked of blood and rain and betrayal. Sonia pressed her hand to her wound, gasping, eyes locking with Bronx's. His wolf eyes, dark, endless, wild, met hers, and for a heartbeat everything stopped. Not rival. Not savior. Something else entirely. Bronx released the pinned wolf just enough to growl, voice rumbling through half-shifted teeth. "Run to Kale. Tell him if he wants to claim her, he'll have to come through me." The lieutenant fled limping into the trees, the other 2 dragging themselves after. Sonia's chest heaved. "You just declared war." Bronx shifted back, blood streaking his bare chest, scar livid in the moonlight. He stepped toward her, close enough she could feel the heat rolling off him. "No. Kale did when he betrayed you." "I only told him the truth." Her pulse roared. "And what truth is that?" His hand hovered near her cheek, not touching, just burning the air between them. "That you're mine to protect now." The words left her trembling. Not because they felt like a cage, but because, for the first time, they felt like a choice. Chapter 7. Moonquarry called an emergency gathering at dawn. Sonia knew it was a trap before the horn stopped echoing through the pines, but she went anyway. If she stayed away, Kale would spin his story without her. Better to stand and let them see her face. The entire pack filled the lodge hall. Elders lined the hearth, eyes wary. Warriors formed a circle around the dais. Kale stood at its center, gleaming like a carved idol, Mara at his shoulder, smiling like a knife in velvet. Brothers. Sisters, Kale began, voice a silky blade. We've harbored a traitor. A wolf who sneaks into Briarborn Woods, conspires with our enemies, betrays her alpha's trust. A wolf named Sonia. A ripple of growls rolled through the hall. Sonia forced herself to step forward, every nerve screaming. I haven't betrayed the pack, she said, clear and loud. I've been training to survive the attacks you arranged. A murmur of shock. Kale's jaw flexed, but his smile didn't slip. Rogues attacked you? Convenient story. And now our rivals protect you? Very convenient. She's lying. Mara's voice cut the air, dripping poison. I saw her slip out night after night. Sonia's chest burned. She looked to Elder Garen, but his eyes were fixed on Kale, fearful, not defiant. The room tilted. This was how Kale would break her, not with knives but with whispers. Then the door burst open. Bronx filled the threshold like a storm in human form, bare-chested, rain dripping off scarred skin, eyes dark with challenge. Behind him, the scent of Briarborn rolled in like cold smoke. Gasps broke across the hall. Wolves tensed, hands going to weapons. Nobody expected a rival's right hand to stride into Moonquarry territory alive. Bronx's gaze swept the circle and landed on Kale. You set rogues on your own mate, he said, voice low and lethal. You sold her to silence your weakness. You broke your bond before she ever did. Kale snarled, stepping down from the dais. You dare walk into my hall? I dared save what you tried to destroy, Bronx growled back. The circle of warriors parted, some out of fear, some out of something like respect. Bronx crossed the floor slowly, every step a challenge. He stopped beside Sonia. Not in front of her, beside her. The room held its breath. Kale's smile finally cracked, rage bleeding through. She's Moonquarry. You have no claim. Bronx's eyes met Sonia's, a question flickering there. She swallowed, heart hammering. In that moment she understood, this wasn't a rescue. This was a choice. She stepped forward until her shoulder brushed Bronx's. No, she said, voice steady. He doesn't. But you lost any right to claim me the night you tried to have me killed. A collective gasp rippled through the hall. Kale lunged. Bronx was faster. His arm came up, claws half-shifted, catching Kale's strike midair. Their snarls echoed off the cedar beams, two predators locked in a moment older than their feud. Around them, Moonquarry wolves hesitated, some shifting toward Kale, some toward Sonia, scenting the rot in their alpha's command. Sonia stood her ground, wolf rising in her skin. For the first time since the bond scar burned her wrist, she wasn't afraid. Chapter 8. The hall erupted. Wolves surged forward, claws bared, teeth snapping, but the center of the storm was Kale and Bronx. Kale moved like a viper. Fast, coiled rage in every strike. Bronx was heavier, rooted, each blow a hammer meant to break stone. Wood splintered under their clash, firelight stuttered across bloodied faces, and the scent of iron thickened the air. Sonia felt her wolf straining at the edges of her skin, but she held it back. Shifting now would be suicide. Kale wanted her feral, wanted her undone so he could call it proof of her betrayal. No, this wasn't Kale's story to write anymore. You dare claim her? Kale snarled, fangs bared as he slammed Bronx into the dais. She was mine. Bronx's laugh was a jagged growl. Then why was she begging to be saved from you? Kale's claws raked down his chest, leaving ribbons of blood. Bronx caught his wrist, twisted, and slammed him to the ground. The alpha hit the planks with a crack that silenced the hall. Every wolf watched. The air vibrated with the weight of choice, follow Kale, or see what came next. Sonia stepped forward. Her wrist blazed, the bond mark burning like molten iron. Kale's head snapped toward her, eyes golden wild. Don't you dare, he hissed. That mark ties you to me. To us. You break it, and you'll never belong anywhere. Her hand shook, but she lifted it. You already broke it, Kale. You just didn't notice when it snapped. The mark seared her flesh, pain lancing up her arm, tearing through her chest. She bit down on a cry, let it wash over her like fire. She pictured Kale's hands on Mara, Kale's voice calling her little moon as if she were nothing, Kale's blade hired to slice her throat. And she let go. The bond cracked. She felt it, an invisible cord snapping, a shudder through her bones. The mark on her wrist blistered, then cooled, fading from angry red to ash gray. The hall gasped. Kale screamed, clutching his own wrist as the magic tore free. His howl echoed through the beams, broken and wild. You ungrateful. Bronx's fist caught him across the jaw, cutting him off mid-roar. Kale crumpled to the floor, not dead, but shattered. Silence followed, broken only by the hiss of the fire. Sonia turned her palm up, the mark still smoking faintly. She raised her voice, steady and clear. I don't belong to Kale. I don't belong to any alpha who rules with fear. I belong to myself. Something shifted in the crowd. Elders exchanged glances. Warriors lowered their claws. Bronx stepped beside her, chest streaked with blood, scar burning bright in the firelight. He didn't speak for her. He didn't have to. His presence was a vow carved in flesh and storm, she wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time, Sonia believed it. Chapter 9. Kale lay sprawled at the foot of the dais, blood pooling from his split lip, his chest rising and falling in ragged pulls. The alpha who once ruled Moonquarry with an iron snarl looked small, diminished, undone. No one moved to help him. The silence stretched long enough for Sonia's heartbeat to settle into her ears. Then Elder Garen rose, his hands trembling as he leaned on his cane. The bond is broken, he said, voice low but clear. The moon does not lie. Sonia no longer carries Kale's mark. Gasps rippled through the hall. She broke it herself, Mara spat, eyes wild. That makes her traitor. Sonia stepped forward, shoulders squared, her voice strong though her chest still burned from the severed bond. What makes a traitor, Mara? The wolf who betrayed his mate and used rogues to cover his cowardice? Or the wolf who refused to be silenced by it? A murmur of agreement stirred the crowd. Even those loyal to Kale shifted uneasily, the truth laid bare in front of them. Kale struggled to sit up, his voice hoarse with rage. She's nothing without me. You all know it, no wolf survives the breaking. But Sonia was still standing. Still breathing. Still strong. And she looked at Kale not with love, not even with hate, but with a final, cold indifference. Watch me. Bronx moved to her side, not touching, but close enough that every wolf could see the choice already made. His scar caught the firelight, his chest still bleeding, his presence a storm that would not yield. Garen's gaze flicked between Sonia and Kale. Then he spoke the words no one else dared, Kale is unfit to lead. The hall erupted. Some wolves held their agreement, others growled their defiance. Chaos threatened to boil over until Bronx raised his voice, deep and unyielding. Enough. Every head turned. The rival wolf, standing in the heart of Moonquarry's lodge, bleeding and unbroken. His words rumbled like thunder. You can tear yourselves apart clinging to a broken alpha, or you can survive what's coming. The Briarborn don't need more blood. But if Kale stays in power, you'll have it. Elders whispered. Warriors shifted uneasily. The truth was undeniable, Kale was weak, and the feud had cost them all. Sonia lifted her chin. If exile is my fate, I'll take it. I'd rather walk into the wild alone than rot under a false alpha. Bronx's voice followed hers, steady and certain. She won't walk alone. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, the lodge faded, the wolves and the fire and the fear all gone. It was just him, scarred and scarless all at once, and her, unbound for the first time in her life. And somewhere in the silence that followed, a new story began. Chapter 10. The moon was high when Sonia finally stepped out of the lodge. The fire inside still crackled with arguments, but she didn't wait for a verdict. Her choice had already been made. She carried nothing but a cloak, her knife, and the weight of freedom burning like fresh air in her chest. The bond mark on her wrist was a faint scar now, no longer a leash, only a reminder. Bronx waited at the tree lean, half in shadow. His posture was easy, but his eyes were sharp, scanning the dark as though every rustle might be an ambush. When he saw her, his expression shifted. Something softer flickering across his scarred face, gone as quickly as it came. "You left them to tear each other apart," he said. "I left before they could chain me again," Sonia replied. "Whatever Moonquarry decides, I won't be bound by it." Bronx studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Good." They walked side by side down the trail that led toward the ridge, silence stretched taut between them. Sonia listened to the rhythm of his steps, steady as her heartbeat. For the first time in years, she wasn't following Kale's pace. She was keeping her own. At the overlook, the valley spread below them, shrouded in mist and starlight. Sonia stopped, breath catching at the sheer vastness of it, the world beyond Moonquarry, the possibilities she had never dared imagine. Bronx leaned against a boulder, watching her rather than the view. "You realize what this means," he said. "You've cut ties with your pack. To them, you'll always be the wolf who broke fate." "Then let them call me that," Sonia said, voice fierce. "I'd rather be faithless than faithful to a lie." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Spoken like a briarborn. She turned to face him fully, the wind tugging at her hair. "And what does that make me to you?" For once, Bronx didn't answer with silence. He pushed off the rock, closing the space between them. "It makes you someone I'd bleed for. Not because fate tied us. Because I choose it." The words struck deeper than any bond. Sonia's breath shivered out, her heart slamming against her ribs. She lifted her hand, hesitating only a moment before touching his scar, the mark of every battle he'd fought and survived. "I don't want another chain," she whispered. His hand rose, rough and careful, cupping the back of her neck. "Then don't. This isn't a bond you're forced into, Sonia. This is fire. You step into it because you want to." She leaned in, closing the distance. Their lips met, fierce and trembling, carrying all the fury, grief, and longing of wolves who had lived too long in cages. The kiss was not gentle, but it was true. When they broke apart, the valley stretched endless before them. Behind, Moonquarry's fires guttered. Ahead, the wild lay waiting. Sonia's voice was steady. "Then let's burn." And together, they stepped into the night. The end. Thank you for listening. I hope you loved this story, and that you will stick around for another.